Hi everybody and welcome to the latest episode of GTA Fancast with me, Gully. Obviously reviewing a rather disappointing defeat to West Ham from the weekend, 3-0, the end result. But before we get into the game, I just wanted to kind of share with you guys. I had a couple of questions as to where I can watch games back, where you can watch games back. I've mentioned that when I do these videos, I tend to watch a full 90 back if I can, and pick out the key bits. Having had a second watch of it, it kind of confirms my thoughts from watching the game live. Maybe doesn't quite confirm them little tweaks and thought processes that I'd initially had, and that kind of gives me the narrative that I can build into kind of presenting this to you. But if I just take you to the Wolves website and point you in the direction of where you can watch the entirety of a number of games, not just recent ones. So if you go to the custom highlights section on wolves.co.uk, you get this page. You can see here West Ham United 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0 is the latest available game. You can obviously watch all the games from previously in the season. Go back as far as, I believe, it's the start of 2020, 2021, which was obviously the season that we struggled through with COVID and Nuno's final season. Obviously, kind of hot topic at the moment, Nuno. But just in terms of getting into the game and what you can kind of see in there, you head onto the timeline. You can actually jump to various instances within the game as well, split by first half and second half. But if you scroll down, you can get to the full 90 tab, play the first half, play the second half. You just need to play them as separate 45 minutes, basically. But that is that really, and that kind of provides the basis for all of the stills and content. Obviously, I can't show you moving footage due to copyright issues. I have tried in the past; it has failed because of that when uploading it to YouTube. So, unfortunate in that sense, but a real good tool, real good resource for me. And just if you ever thought about wanting to watch, some really good results back in the past, maybe some not so good ones as well, and just kind of understand the story of those games again, especially. I think it's a nice thing to have on the website. So kudos to the Wolves guys for actually coming up with the concept and being able to produce a nice bit of content for everyone for sure. Going to get into the West Ham game now, and I've titled this as a game of moments. I think there's been a lot of narrative about the fact that we changed shape to a back four, and I kind of wanted to prove the point really that this game wasn't about our shape in terms of the way it was decided. I think there are certain issues that came about because we played a back four, but fundamentally we did not lose the game because we did. West Ham as a team, I think I just wanted to touch on as well. I had no issue personally. I was calling for this myself, to be honest, on Twitter as well, that Gary O'Neill shifted the shape for this game. I think West Ham are an interesting side, and there's lessons you can learn from them in the sense that their midfield specifically, I don't think it's designed to control games. I think they have in their first choice midfield a selection of players who are functional and offer certain elements and kind of collaborate in a way. But in terms of controlling a game and having a lot of possession, things like that, they're not particularly interested in that. You've obviously got James Ward-Prowse, who is that functional kind of set piece threat, whether it be direct or indirect, capable of obviously delivering ball into the box from wide areas as well when he gets a chance. Thomas Souček offers that ability to get into the box and get on the end of things. I'll be honest, I don't think he offers a fat lot other than that. But having someone who's 6'3", 6'4" in the middle of the park is always going to help in terms of 50-50 duels, winning things in the air and stuff as well. So it can't be a bad thing in that sense. And then you've got Edson Alvarez, who is the screener, sits deepest, pretty simple in possession, able to get about the pitch, and is a bit more of a destructive kind of presence. And I think because that midfield is set up that way, it's a team that you can kind of look to dominate possession against. And if we have an extra forward player in attacking areas like we did, then you can have a little bit of joy. The other side of the coin with West Ham is that at the top end of the pitch, they've got very good players who are capable of scoring goals like they showed. And at the back end of the pitch, they've got very kind of talented individual defenders who are able to defend their box very well and deal with the threat of any kind of type of player, really. Despite us getting into good positions, I think they were able to kind of nullify things just because of their individual talent at the back with players like Aged, Kurt Zuma, and make sure we didn't get too much joy in attacking areas. But kind of just touching on the first 20 minutes, because I think it's really important to understand that the game really didn't the performance didn't really shift until we conceded the first goal, I think. These are all kind of situations, screenshots of situations that we had in the first 20 minutes. The first one is actually within the first minute in the top left. Mateus Cunha, I think we might have to cut him some slack, given that apparently he was suffering with a virus, but he's actually 1v1 with half of the pitch totally empty to run into, and he chose to pass the ball on in that situation. I just thought a couple of scenarios like that were really frustrating. Um, I'm not going to go into detail about all of these, but it just goes to prove the point that the game wasn't, the perception of the game was that 3-0 were well beaten. Even at half time, we probably weren't feeling particularly good at ourselves. But the first 20 minutes, I wholeheartedly believe we were the better team. And it's worth understanding that from a shape perspective, that contributed to that. There was plenty of interplay, there was plenty of linking up. We were able to get on the ball, get our attacking players in possession. It was just a sloppiness in that possession when it came to the final third, and some bad decision making as well, which really let us down, which was the exact opposite of what West Ham ended up doing. They were really efficient in the way that they played. Talking about the goals, I think first one is it's not the most difficult one to analyse, but I think the real key point here was Bellegarde losing that duel on the edge of the penalty area with Lucas Paquetá as the ball came out from the corner. There were two instances specifically at the opposite end of the pitch where West Ham had corners cleared by us out to the edge when Mohamed Kudus had a bit of a decision to make. Pretty much exactly the same kind of scenario. Ball bouncing, being challenged by a Wolves player. And he didn't necessarily win the duel per se in those situations, but what he did do was he managed to get his body in between player and ball ultimately and ensure that a counter-attack wasn't imminent. I think there was one situation where we might have got the ball and was able to break, but that kind of delay in ensuring that the ball wasn't won immediately allowed his defenders to recover, and we didn't make anything of it. Paquetá thereafter was kind of world class in terms of picking the right pass, but I think ultimately when you find yourself in this kind of situation with Mohamed Kudus, there's a pretty obvious situation to kind of take him into, that is taking down the line. Now, Semedo, I think, is our one-on-one best defender, hands down. Doesn't cover himself in glory. Think he thinks that he can probably do his best to either force him into a bad shot or win the ball in kind of the way that he normally would with a winger. But when you look at that screenshot there, we're not in a bad position at all. We've got players on the cover, so to then end up conceding the goal in that manner was really, really disappointing, and just goes to show though that having a talented player like Kudus who can kind of make something out of nothing at the top end of the pitch, and there's an interesting kind of juxtaposition between these guys having a £40 million forward, us having a £40 million forward, and the impact of those players when it comes to breaking games and making that value felt. And Kudus is on fire really in terms of not being flashy, not being particularly involved throughout games. When it comes down to these moments, really making the difference for his team. The second goal is the one I really want to get into as in terms of analysing it properly. This is obviously the point at which Mario Lemina picks up the ball, and we know what he wants to do. He's trying to play that kind of slide rule pass into Mateus Cunha, who's making a run forward. Not necessarily the worst option in the world, but low percentage. And I think it's been discussed already that it was probably the wrong option to take. But within all this, I kind of highlighted 4 of the players in this scenario just to talk about the team structure. Totti is someone who has been picked out as having had a bad game. I don't think he had a good game, but essentially not one of those goals was he culpable in. Obviously, Mohamed Kudus having a good game, kind of people correlate the two, but in none of those situations was Totti really able to make an impact on what Kudus was doing. Like I say, Lemina's played the wrong pass for me. Focus here on Joao Gomez initially. Semedo obviously taking a high position on that far side as the widest player on the right. Totti playing as an orthodox left back, picking up a position in which he could potentially pick up the ball with Bellegarde tucked in. So someone needs to be available on the touchline really to ensure that we can progress play. Again, Lamina taking the wrong option to begin with, but once we've lost the ball here, you can see Kurt Zuma's already kind of played that pass into Lucas Paquetá. Look at where João Gomez is. For me, there's no need for him to step ahead of Mario Lamina in this situation at all. But he did for some reason. If he, where I've placed the arrow, kind of was retreated as he was, he was only moving forward for, the only purpose I can think of is if the ball breaks into that area, he's able to go in and press and pick up that loose ball, which we've been very good at for the most part this season. But someone like Bellegarde is also able to impact the play if the ball drops somewhere around where Thomas Souček is, as an example. In the end, we've got Totti, who is obviously on the recovery. Kudus has got probably 10 yards on him in this situation. Nelson Semedo not able to impact the play because he has taken a high position as well. And then Lamina, who, if you think about it, and we kind of move on to the next screenshot here, if anyone was able to impact Paquetá, he was probably the closest. For some reason, he takes a bit of a kind of strange moment and doesn't seem to want to do anything really. But you've also then got João Gomez, this is a pet hate of mine because you wouldn't tell your centre backs to do this. So I don't understand why central midfielders do this. He runs across his central midfielder partner to then go and close Lucas Paquetá down. Now, the first mistake was obviously going ahead of the ball when he didn't need to, but to then kind of compound it when there's no real chance of him actually getting to Paquetá before he's actually played a pass. Now, the speed at which Paquetá does this is obviously world class, and the ease with which he finds Kudus, despite it's not the most difficult pass in the world, but the speed at which he does it is kind of that's that top level player spotting something and delivering instantly, and that's the difference between some of the creative midfielders we've got, when we haven't got too many, let's be honest, but and the likes of West Ham, who have been able to splash the cash off the back of a couple of decent seasons and bring a player like Paquetá in. And then you obviously find yourself in this scenario where we're not done here. I don't think we're totally killed and dead, but we have got Craig Dawson at the back, who obviously isn't the most mobile of our centre-halves. Whilst we have Dawson at the back, we're always going to be in a situation where we need to try and cover for him. And there are intangible reasons as to why Dawson needs to play most games, in terms of his leadership, his experience, his ability to probably keep Max Kilman in check and really allow him to flourish as well, which we've seen. Max Kilman's been in really good form this season. But if this is a more mobile centre-back, are they able to kind of get back at Kudus and force him into a more difficult scenario? It's not like Kudus is in on goal entirely here. I think there's a chance, because he's carrying the ball, that the A centre half who has pace is able to get back at this. But unfortunately, he ends up finishing it really well, which is just another sign of a really good player doing really good things. There were more needy moments within this game, and just because of the way the situation went in terms of West Ham being able to sit back on their lead, have bodies in the penalty area, little situations like this, which were kind of well worked in many scenarios, just didn't end up coming to fruition because they had bodies in the way. I don't think West Ham were particularly brilliant and diligent defensively. They allowed us to get into a number of good attacking positions, and they allowed us to get a number of shots off. The fact that they were then blocking them is just kind of weight and number stuff. It wasn't structurally pretty great, if I'm being honest. And then there were other situations where we just made bad decisions and lost the ball in such really kind of flaky, poor ways that it wasn't befitting of the kind of talent that we had on the pitch. There are other thoughts and feelings that I've got about use of substitutions and things like that, which really frustrated me in this game as well. But it just wasn't the recovery of the game. Whilst we scored a really good goal, that was obviously disallowed. Brilliant goal, back to front, worked it really nicely. A goal that doesn't happen without the extra forward on the pitch, might add as well. It's the fact that we're kind of running Cunha into the ground, the fact that we've got Hwang playing wide in this game because I don't think O'Neill trusted Sarabia and Bellegarde to track Emerson, who's the more attacking fullback within the West Ham team as well. Taking away kind of our best goal threats from situations. Obviously, Cunha playing with a virus potentially as well. Things like that. You have to then, I think, try something different. we actually, and I'm going to go through some of the numbers here, fared quite well in terms of some of the data. So second highest number of touches in the attacking third. The only time we've had more was against Bournemouth, where they obviously had 10 men. Fifth most touches in the attacking penalty area this season. Fourth most crosses. We don't have a penalty box threat, and we do have players capable of offering a threat in the penalty area on the bench. Why we didn't make a change at 2-0, even 3-0, boggles my mind, frankly. It's just boneheaded and needless. We made the most progressive passes we have in any game this season. Now, aerial duels lost again kind of comes back to that point about, have we got a penalty box threat in the penalty area? No, we don't. But also just being physically kind of out-battled in this game. There were a couple of situations where we shut out challenges, which is really disappointing. And then we were third worst for challenges, won 36.8% of our challenges we won. So really kind of outdone in a number of really basic areas, which is where West Ham kind of do their work. And the other one for me was worst MPXG per shot. So this is the XG of each shot on average that we took within the game, and it just points out that we're taking shots from really bad situations throughout. So yeah, bad day at the office. I think I've just kind of resigned myself to not ever having a good result out of that stadium now. Won't ever get my hopes up, despite the fact that I'm never really particularly impressed by West Ham as a team. But having good players at the top end of the pitch makes a massive difference. And when you kind of get them in space and allow them to counter on you like that, then you're dead. But disappointing game. I'm not sure what to make of going into Chelsea, but hopefully Pedro Neto being back and Ryan Aït-Nouri being back allows this system to kind of flourish again. Because otherwise I don't really see us being threatening enough without compromising our defence, and without compromising our defence, we're not going to threaten at all. So it's kind of a bit of a catch-22 until January at the moment, the way things are going. So hopefully that changes with some new additions, because there's no other way I think it's going to happen.